stick around to keep doing it. Like that I've never wanted to be alive more in order to continue to experience this and witness all of this.
Aloha, my name is Adam Propel, and I'm a technical advisor at LightNet. My purpose is to teach the world to dream awake, a research field we describe as lucid living. Today, we're with Alex Rovang. Alex took a small ceramic studio and blossomed it into a true community resource. With shared gallery spaces, shared workspaces, it's now become a cherished part of the Sedona arts community.
Well, I think that I've discovered that my purpose in this lifetime is wonder. I like the many different ways that you can experience that, and facilitating that for other people has turned into a real passion for me. The moment that it hit me that that was my purpose was when I finally found myself in the midst of this art studio that I had created, that all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm living my purpose, but it wasn't something that I knew that I was going to be pursuing prior to that. Like I didn't set up a business plan to explore wonder. And I wonder what that would even look like. But it's one of those moments where you're like, oh, here I am doing something that I love, and I'm happy, and I just want to keep doing it. The way that it came to pass was that I was working in my home studio and needed indoor space. Frankly, my ceramic studio was an outdoor environment that was subject to all the elements and the insects and whatever else. And I began pursuing a big quest to find an indoor space that I could work in, and working with other people or facilitating it for other people became actually it was sort of a necessity for me more than something I pursued. I started with our first unit here with the idea of having my own personal studio. I think a lot of artists like their personal space. Most artists are introverted people and very much enjoy being in solitude while they're working. And the membership here started as a means to an end, really. I invited some artists that I didn't mind being around, basically, and was just like, do you want to co-rent this space? And you guys are welcome to use my equipment, and I'll fire your stuff in the kiln and all of that stuff. And then when the other unit opened up, which had better windows and all of that other stuff, and I wanted to expand into that because I just knew that it was going to be better visuals for the working with the public and being able to be seen by them, as well as just a bigger, beautiful, brighter space, because these are all shotgun units, so they don't have the daylight that you would like to see in them, and so you have to poke a bunch of holes in the ceiling for lots of money to get skylights and stuff like that. And then how that sort of pivoted was then, well, let's just expand the membership thing to help to pay for this space, and then I'll go hide in my hobbit hole, and everybody gets a great studio, and then I'll get my little private studio, off to the side. And here we are 3.25 units later. And the need continues to slowly sort of present itself. Everybody needs a place to be creative. And what has become evident is that when you get creative people together in a space, when you have the right elements together, the sum is greater than its parts, and everybody's sort of vibing off of each other, and that's a really special thing. So the expression of wonder that I was witnessing in myself and others then became something that was almost more beautiful than the art itself. To be able to facilitate that in other people became highly rewarding in a different way. When it started to dawn on me what was happening with everybody sort of swelling with happiness and joy and wonder from the experience of living and working in this area with each other, we would often reflect on it, and I think that was really special. When you're sort of like living in your joy and you're trying to only be true to that versus trying to pretend like you're something different or someone that you're not, but you're just kind of like, I'm just a goofy artist and I'm just going to sit around and make art and pursue that. And I know that sounds more difficult. Like I say that and I'm sure someone listening to me would shake their head and be like, you can't just do that. And maybe I'm an outlier, but I don't think that I am. I think that people can just start to live who they want to be. And a lot of that takes a lot of fearlessness and just sort of committing to it. And the commitment ends up being self-rewarding in the sense that I'm never sure we're going to pay the rent. I'm never sure of it. Not yet. I know that time is coming soon, and I'm certain of that, but I'll get to the end of a month and I'm just like, we don't have rent, but it'll come. And I never feel the anxiety. I never build any tension around that. And sure enough, we'll do like a couple of lessons and we'll sign up a membership and somebody will ask for 50 cups and then you're like, oh, okay, we got rent. Cool. But I think that's the fun and exciting part about building something or chasing after one of your passions is just that it doesn't matter if you succeed. And I think that like the point of living fearlessly and knowing that what's the worst that can happen in this moment? Like, I don't get rent. Maybe I don't make it the next month. Maybe I don't make it the next month. Maybe my landlord kicks me out. What do I have? Well, I still have the same level of health that I would have if I didn't have this business. I'd still have the same friends. My family would still be there. All the things that matter would still be there. So yeah, there's always a bartending gig that can get me my food and my rent and whatever else. But that tomorrow isn't promised, and you have to live with that as a mantra that like nothing is really that important that you have to be so worried about failure. Like failure is awesome. It's awesome because every time that we fail, we build ourselves into the person that we're supposed to be. And that I think that all of the failure of my life up until this moment has like honed me into the person that can navigate this with at least more grace than I might have done in the past. So that's been good. You could, to ask, what experiences prepared me for this, I would say what didn't, what didn't prepare me for this. I feel like I am exactly who I am today based off of every single experience of this lifetime. And I am exactly who I'm supposed to be. And if that is someone that is able to continue to steer this little weird wacky ship of art and creativity into the future, then that's who I am. If I'm supposed to be someone that does this for a time and then moves on to do something else, then that's beautiful too. Like it's all great. And I hope that I hope that I get to experience all of that. And I was telling my friend Adam this when we were chatting about the studio, was that this is like one of the, I wouldn't say this is the first time in my life where I felt this, but I would say that this is the first time in my life that I felt this so strongly, is that I pray to God that I can stick around to keep doing it. Like that I've never wanted to be alive more in order to continue to experience this and witness all of this and hopefully change people's lives, but change my own life and have a great time doing it. Nothing's cooler than going into work in the morning and sit down with a cup of coffee and someone comes up to you and starts talking to you about their art project, and you start talking about art and then its connections to art history and the fascinating systems and ways in which you could navigate that interesting idea, and you're both open, you're both like, oh yeah, it's like improv, the whole yes and thing. If you're not all like caught up in your ego and you're just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, like that's a fun way to do it. And and that makes me think of this. And so this exponential growth of that creative spirit and force, that's where the muse comes from, and that's where we're unlocking parts of ourselves that we, like those ideas we wouldn't have had were we not talking to somebody about it. And so that's one of the greatest things that I would say comes from the studio in this life, in this moment, is that you get this exponential sum is greater than its parts kind of thing happening with people saying yes and they're having ideas they weren't going to have. And I wouldn't be doing that if I had just stayed in a small little dark studio all by myself, kind of thing. As much as I thought I wanted that. If asked what my greatest challenge to living my purpose and my passion would be, I would honestly be hard pressed to find it. It's because when you're doing what you feel is your purpose, what you feel like you were kept here to do, then it really becomes so effortless. And I know that sounds unbelievable, but like it just becomes, it's like it's the questions start being removed from the whole thing, and you're just sort of like floating along, following the tendrils of the way that you're being brought through it. And it really becomes, when the doubt starts to be removed, when you stop to think about what or am I or if or blah blah, all the questions, all the self-doubt, once you just, even if maybe that should exist but you just don't allow it, you're just like, well, that's not helpful. Maybe I just won't sit in self-doubt, but maybe I'll just trust that maybe I am messing up, or maybe I am doing a great job, or maybe, but does it matter? Maybe everything's fine. I don't have to question if it's perfect, because nothing is, and yet it all is because it isn't. Maybe, I don't know. You can get too wrapped up in the evaluation of things. That's a big issue that we have as human beings, is that we're constantly evaluating things in a way that we're trying to somehow gauge it as greater than or less than, or what could make this better, when you could just sit back and say, isn't this nice? If I had to give any advice towards what this process has sort of taught me, or what I could teach another person about it, is that's an ineffable sort of thing that's probably specific to each individual purpose, but I would say that the commonality between any purpose or person that has, found their purpose, would be that they just started, that you just start. Like and so many of the projects that I've worked on here are not the project I started. And so I learned how the project needed to look or feel or translate based off of the process of starting, creating an iteration, looking at that iteration and being like, oh, that gives me this idea I never had before, and let's work with that. And then pretty soon, 6 iterations later, or you just build, you're not like scrapping and starting over. You might be tearing out one part of it and putting in a new, or maybe you did 3 iterations in your head. There's nothing wrong with sitting and thinking about something. And I'm sure I've had multiple people in my life that think that I think too long about something. I'm that horrible, indecisive Libra type, that I will sit and but I build things in my head, and lots of like any of my wood projects or anything like that, like I'm doing it in my head, and then once you get to a certain point where you're building something in your head where it's like now I need to start it in the real world to really understand the mechanisms and if it's going to work or what's going to make it work better, because you can only picture the engineering of something in your head for so long before you have to actually put pencil to paper, put screw to wood, put your hands on the clay, get your damn hands dirty, That's how you do dishes, get your hands wet. Yeah, I think it affects the people around me through just living by example and vice versa. I don't think that every day I am the person that I would hope to be in terms of like the energy for a project or whatever else. And then someone comes in and they just got like a bunch of spitfire behind some idea that they got. And I'm like, okay, yep, I'm going to get my hands dirty now. It's just sort of, I don't know if it's I wouldn't say if some days it's not inspiration so much as like leverage. You feel leveraged into action. And in any case, maybe that's potentially what I do for other people is leverage them into action. I feel like, the psychotic nature of which I have continued to grow this studio at a speed that is not at all what one might call business savvy. You would say that I've expanded way too quickly, and you'd be right, but also it's working. And so there's something about that cavalier behavior that I think emboldens other people too. Seeing people living fearlessly and just approaching their day without the fear getting in the way of their action. If the world was full of people living their passion and their purpose, obviously that's utopian. Obviously. And that would require so much to change societally, structurally. The world isn't built around people doing that. There's probably more reasons than someone holding themselves back for people to be held back. And so a lot of that takes conversations just societally about what a new world that supports that kind of society looks like, and how do we achieve that by working together and having tough conversations. Like the divisiveness of our current society. You could say politically, but you could say it on so many different levels. ideologically, religiously, is one where people have really lost any sense of humor or or rather that everybody takes themselves so seriously. Like they think that their opinion is the most important thing, and that when somebody disagrees with them, that they have to defend that. That's one of the realizations I've begun to really hold, ironically, as an opinion. But I try not to have too many opinions, because I see that when people have strong opinions, or opinions in general, we then have to defend those opinions. When you connect yourself to an ideology, an opinion, which is something that maybe you can't prove empirically, you have to defend it because you've made it a part of you. And I see that happening with so many nice people, just really nice people that just start to like dig in their heels on opinions. And I mean, I think it was just today there was something that someone shared, a new truth about something, and I reevaluated an opinion that I had today. And that was really felt good. It feels good once you start to realize that opinions really just trap you. Purpose-fueled model for society is one that will propel us in a very positive direction necessarily, because we will have more of an interest in helping ourselves and others to achieve that for one another, in the same way that my studio basically became a propellant for others, that then became a propellant for myself to help others, became a propellant for them to help others as well, and vice versa. You see it in the studio all the time, like it, because what's better than receiving is giving, always. So, the tying that back in with like wonder, the realization, and why I say wonder at the beginning, the realization that I had some years back, to believe that is the most important word in the English language for myself, and maybe for others, and I feel for others, is because whether we're conscious of it or not, we spend our lives chasing it. And so we're chasing wonder through the arts, through theater, through music, through literature, and the average human, unless I'm mistaken, spends the most part of their life working for food, for rent, to support their family, basically making ends meet, and commuting, and just dying to live. And they end up chasing these little moments of wonder, that favorite song that just comes out while they're commuting. Even on the most basic level, you worked all day in a cubicle, your day was filled with strife, with news of political unrest, with all these things, and you get home and you make your TV dinner and you sit down and you watch a show on Netflix, and that's their little piece of wonder for the day, and they maybe got to feel something. They got to chase a different narrative than what they experienced in their life. And I think that once we recognize that is so sacred to us, that wonder is such an important thing, and that we don't have to consider it to be in short supply, it's right there, it's always right there, that we can weave it into our lives, even if we still keep that cubicle job. Maybe we're doing something within that cubicle that's inspiring more wonder. Once we recognize that it's a currency that you can't really buy so much as you can create yourself, then that's then it's more attainable. Then it's something that you can spark rather than chase.
Are you looking to begin your life of passion and purpose? We are waiting for you with our groups of 8 to 12. These loving teams are formed to look over our success data to find the fastest and funnest and most direct way for you to find your purpose and calling in life. To find out more, go to holomovement.net/purpose.